reminds me of the first F8 that we had. I mean, it was like one of my favorite stories from kind of all F8s is literally after the keynote and after everything that happened during the day, the whole Facebook crew that was working on the initial platform went back to the hotel, and we were all sitting in a room pushing platform to the site. And it's like there was all this stuff that was breaking, like we couldn't even get an internet connection, and we're like, crap, like how are we supposed to push this? So yeah, there will definitely be stuff going on today as well, but it's pretty solid, right? I mean, we've been working with partners for a period now. I know that some of the stuff Brett and I discussed when we were doing the FriendFeed acquisition about kind of what direction we wanted the web to go in, and that alignment that we had was one of the things that made it so you guys wanted to join us.
We got Justin Smith.
Hey guys, Justin Smith from Inside Network. One of the announcements you made today was that you were removing the policy on the 24-hour caching of user data, but you didn't talk that much more about what the new policies were, or if there are any around kind of how you want partners to use user data or how you want them to treat it. So I was wondering if you could talk about that and what the thinking was behind the changes today.
So I just want to emphasize that that policy is really a removal of a technical restriction, but it doesn't change the restrictions we have on what partners can do with user data. So, you know, the relationship between a user and an application that uses Facebook is still between that user and that application. And to do things with that user's data, they need explicit consent. And there's really no new things you can do with user data. Just to date, we had imposed this relatively black and white technical restriction on like the number of hours you could cache data on servers. And if you imagine Zynga, which is one of the larger Facebook developers, has 100 million users, so they literally needed to download the names of their users 100 million times a day just to comply with this black and white technical restriction. So we're not trying to change what developers can do with the data. We're just trying to make it technically simpler for them doing the right things. And so in conjunction with removing this restriction, we're also launching the real-time features of the Graph API. So it'll just be easier for sites like Zynga to keep things up to date without what had become kind of a unscalable technical restriction.
One thing that relates to your question as well, and I talked about those two policy changes. One was kind of combining all the permissions into one dialogue. That actually has a bigger impact on how people are using information, because today, or before we did that, there was basically, when you went to connect to an application, either on the web or on Facebook, you in one step kind of gave that application access to all of your information. And now what we're doing is the applications have to ask specifically for the things that they want. So if there's public information, then they can access that, right, the same way that any other user can who's on the service. But if they want to get access to your photos, for example, which are not default public, or your contact information, or any of your friends' information that's not public, then they need to ask you for that specifically on a line item by item basis. We have those nice pictures so that people can actually understand what's going on. That actually is a big change in terms of the privacy model, which should make it a lot clearer for users what's going on, and should encourage developers to ask for less information, because they're only going to ask for what they need to.
Okay, thanks. I was just wondering if there were any new use cases you were intending to allow or create by changing the policy, but it sounds like
the 24-hour thing?
It sounds like it was primarily a technical reason.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you can probably talk more to this, but like we just heard anecdotes all the time about developers having to build different code paths to support information that was coming from Facebook so that they can comply with this policy. So that became a big part of people's decision about whether they wanted to integrate with Facebook. They saw the value, but then they were like, okay, but we have to architect this completely different system to be in compliant with the policy. So if we just remove that restriction, then now it's just going to be so much simpler for people to develop.
One of the intents of the policy originally was to make sure that users' data stayed up to date in applications and throughout the web. And the real-time features that we talked about earlier today kind of goes hand in hand with that. Because with that feature, you can now subscribe to changes in user data, and when that, if the user changes their profile picture or changes their name, be notified in real time. And that really sort of helps maintain the spirit of the original policy while removing the technical restriction.
Hi, Christian Captain here from KTVU Channel 2. Just wondering if we could talk to you briefly in the back.
Where are you? There you go.
hiding back here. Wondering if you could just talk for a moment about how this will change the experience for the end user. In other words, for most people who use Facebook, they're not developers. What changes are they going to see coming out of this conference? And then also you touched a little bit on the privacy concern. And with the open graph model, does that then change their ability to keep what information they want private, or is this all going to be out there available for everyone to see all the time?
Yeah, so what a user should see is now as they're going around the web or using different mobile applications, things should just be a lot more social, right? Because of all of the different initiatives that we've done. Probably the most that they're going to experience are going to be social plugins, right? These pieces of functionality that people drop into their sites that make it so that you can see which of your friends have liked something or activity on a site. And that shows no new information to anyone than was previously visible, right? So I mean, you could have seen those stories on newsfeed from your friends, but instead on CNN, for example, now you can see only the part of the newsfeed filtered down to the stuff relevant to CNN. So it really has no privacy implications at all because of the way it was designed. No information is being transferred to CNN in that case. In fact, I think the GDP stuff, sorry, that's the internal code name. We give all of our platform products have economics code names. Granular data permissions, GDP. The one-step permissions dialog should make it so that people are actually sharing less of their sensitive information with applications, because now, instead of just clicking once in order to give an application access to all of your information, now the applications are only going to ask for the information that they need, because if they ask for more than they need, then you're going to see this this picture of photos. It's like, why does this application need access to my photos? That's weird, and then you just won't connect to it. So I think what this actually means is that people are going to be sharing less of their information when they don't need to around the web. People are going to have more social experiences in all of these applications, and it's going to be really seamless.
Hi.